parties will say they want to break the 8. But we are saying, why don't you break the stealing and stop the looting? You want to break the 8, yes, fine. It's a good ambition to have from a political party point of view. But break the stealing and stop the looting. Break the stealing and stop the looting.
There are a lot of evil going on. And if they cannot speak, then who are they for? Are they for the church or they are for government? Are they for the people or they are for evil? So that's the point I am making, that I think their voice go very far. There are a lot of Catholics in this country. There are a lot of Catholics, Christians in this country. If the Christian Council, the Bishops' Conference, and all those religious bodies, including those of Muslim and Islam, they will all speak as they were speaking in the past, I think we may be moving towards peace.
The Anti-Corruption Conference also featured a panel discussion where experts stressed the urgent need for a direct and relentless fight against the growing corruption menace in the country. For Joy News, Carlos Galoni, Accra.
So there you have it. Dr. John Osai-Kwapon. Domilovo is of the view that we are losing the fight against corruption because some of the leaders, Christian leaders, like the Catholic bishop leaders, who used to be very vocal about corruption and corruption-related activities in the past, have become silent. What do you make of it?
I mean, yes, again, if you look at the most recent Afrobarometer, the perceptions of corruption growing among institutions. Even when you ask about the level of corruption, quite a number of people say that they perceive that the level of corruption has increased. As to whether because religious bodies, for example, in his opinion, are not being as vocal as possible, is what is continuing to fuel it. I'm not sure that alone is what would make the difference. But yes, it shouldn't even be just up to everybody should be a moral crusader against corruption, right? It shouldn't be up to these it shouldn't be up to these religious bodies alone to speak up against it. I think it's the responsibility of every citizen who cares about the country to be a moral crusader against corruption. So I won't necessarily pin it on them, but to say that yes, the fight has to continue. It has to be relentless. We have quite a number of laws on the books. We've tried different things. And so sometimes when you look at the data coming in and you hear of some of these alleged stories, you end up asking yourself what more is left to be done to be able to, effectively deal with one of the challenges to our governance architecture. But I won't pin it on the lack of voicing out among religious bodies.
But do you agree that they could be speaking up more than they're doing now, or than we are experiencing in this season?
Well, I mean, how a citizen or how a body or how an organization uses their voice in our democratic spaces is up to them. So whether they choose to activate their voice or not is their sole prerogative. It's not up to me to say that someone should activate their voice in our democracy. It's a choice they have whether they want to speak up or not. Yes, we can expect that I wish person A or body B would speak up on some of these governance issues, but whatever reason, it's always an individual choice or it's an organizational choice to decide how they want to use their voice in a democracy.
Doc, I mean, in your opinion, would you say that in this administration, the past 8 years, in the fight against corruption has actually been lost? Would you say that, in your opinion? And if not, how would you rate the fight? So
I do agree, and I've mentioned the findings of Afrobarometer, right, that yes, the perceptions of the fight or how the government's efforts to fight corruption has been rated very low. And part of that is also, in my opinion, a position that the president has taken that I understand, but I think is what has also hurt him in terms of public perceptions. And if you give me just 30 seconds to reiterate that point. The president often says that not until you are in trouble, you would never appreciate due process, the importance of due process. And so there is a highly legalistic standard that he sets to deal with issues of alleged corruption. And I can understand that, right? Due process is important. If I accuse you of something, I want to make sure that you have right to counsel, all of those things. I have to presume you innocent, etc., etc. But there's a political dimension to corruption. And I think when you prioritize the legalistic side of it over the political side of it, which is things like condemnation, even asking people to step aside, not because you are pronouncing them guilty, but at least you want to make sure that it doesn't cast any negative images on your administration. I think that is what that strictly legalistic approach, in my opinion, is what has hurt the president's standing on the fight against corruption.
So, I mean, some would argue that that intersection between the due process and political influence is what's really accounting for the decline in the fight, because the people who are supposed to be held accountable or be punished, I mean, going through those due process, they have enough power to influence these processes, obstruct evidence, and frustrate the entire process. So is that what's really happening right now? But
at the same time, too, I don't know if I would describe it as obstructing the process, right? But it's also part of, if I'm accused of something, I'm also allowed to fight it for as long as I can, to as many places as I can, right? So if a decision goes against me, I have every right to appeal it and keep appealing till some final determinations are made. But again, for me, I think what has hit the president in terms of his standing and the public perceptions is that there are times where you have to exercise your political muscle to deal with some of these things. So one clear example, the case of the allegations against Mr. Charles Edubuani, for example, right? The immediate call that's, said, look, if you're peddling these things about the certain vice president, he must be, asked to resign or etc., etc. And the swiftness with which he was made to leave office. If there had been a number of instances like that, I think it would have balanced nicely the political way of dealing with alleged cases of corruption and the legalistic standard that the president has set. And I don't think it would have hurt him in the standing of the public like the way we are seeing now when you look at, as of the most recent Afrobarometer, only 14% rate the fight against corruption very well, which is quite unfortunate and disappointing.
Okay, thank you so much, Doc. Do we still have Haruna with us?
Yes.
Haruna, what do you make of these assertions and posturing that we are losing the fight against corruption and the Christian leaders aren't speaking up as much as they were in the past, and that's why we are not winning the fight against corruption?
There has always been a process to fighting corruption, and this government has demonstrated a lot of courage in terms of funding to anti-corruption institutions, bringing up institutions that will help to curb corruption, the introduction of the digital platforms to take off the hands of human beings in terms of dealing directly on matters of corruption. I think that it's a worry for all of us. Corruption has been a phenomenon everybody has been fighting with. And I'm very happy that we have a candidate in Dr. Alhaji Mahmoud Bawumia, who throughout his interactions, nobody could point to him and then tell him that this is a corruption-related matter that you have either engaged yourself or acted in a manner that will lead up to making sure that the nation's the peg is being misused. So it's a laudable call that we are getting from the civil society, And I believe that Domelevo can attest to the fact that the resources that was given to his institution when he was there, the setting up of the special prosecutor office, and then other anti-corruption bodies and the funding that we have given to them. So I think that it is something all of us has to look at, unlike what we have in our within our counterparts. If you look at Mr. John Dramani Mahama, even as vice president, the issues of the embryo that was hanging on him, the issues of his own investigation by the president then, he himself now being acclaimed as a government official, one in the international cycles. We know the issues of the Amajaro. We know so many other issues relative to cocoa and what have you, where he has directly engaged himself, where he takes transactions by himself and he deals with them. So
points made.
I believe that all of us collectively have to look at it. And then I think that corruption is something that we have to continue to fight. We cannot say that we can eradicate corruption completely, but we can fight it with a mindset of people who are bold, who have not engaged themselves in this act. And I believe that Dr. Bawumia stands the opportunity to be able to
you keep singling out the vice president, Haruna.
He will never be corrupt.
Haruna, you singled out the vice president. You say he's incorruptible, he's never been corrupt, he will never be corrupt. And he's part of this current, that's fine, he's part of this current administration. How would you, and then let me reference that Afrobarometer report that Dr. John Osai-Kwapong also just referenced on how majority of the people think that the country is going in the wrong direction and all that. How would you rate this current administration's performance in terms of the fight against corruption on a scale of 1 to 10? How would you rate your own administration in terms of the fight against corruption?
On the scale of 1 to 10, I can rate this government 8. Because we have done a number of things. We have demonstrated that this government will fight corruption. You know, corruption also relates to the mindset, the attitudinal behavior of people. And whenever corruption is said, people only point to politicians. The civil servants do worse things in terms of corruption-related matters because most of those particular issues are engineered even from the office before it gets to the politician. So I think that we have to all collectively fight this particular canker. And I believe that the NPP has done a lot in terms of fighting corruption.
Thank you so much. That was Haruna Mohammed, the Deputy General Secretary of the NPP. And we also spoke to Dr. John Osai-Kwapong from the Center for Democratic Development, as well as Mustapha Bande, the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC. And that's how we're wrapping up. Thank you all so much, gentlemen, for joining us for this conversation.